Welcome to Fire for Effect Live. January 19th. Wow. We just passed the most depressing Monday of the year, allegedly. I hope everybody's doing good. It's cold as fuck out here in Edmonton. Let's dive into it. Tonight, we got a pretty interesting show. I got a really fucking wicked guest who's not a civilian for a change. If you saw the teaser trailers we put out on Twitter and Instagram, you can have a good idea that we're going what I'm going to call point blank. If you've ever wondered what Fire for Effect means, no one's actually asked me that ever. So unless you're an Army guy, you don't know what that means. Google it. We're going to go fucking full Fire for Effect tonight. And I'm willing to explain that at any time. I'll bring my guests in here in a second. Until then, I want to cover some front-end admin. Fire for Effect and Fire for Effect Live is brought to you by DeanBlundell.com. Fire for Effect is part of the Dean Blundell Network. Go to DeanBlundell.com for Canada's largest digital source of news, sports, and podcasts, and all kinds of other interesting shit. Check out DeanBlundell.com. Hello, Jen. Jen, where's my needle book? I was looking for my needle book. It's pretty bad when you have to ask your ex-wife where your fucking needle book is. Anyway, it doesn't matter. We'll come back to that later. Sponsored by Positive Mike's Brewing Company. Positive Mike's, you can get the beer. Sorry, you can get the gear, but you can't get the beer. That being said, tomorrow I'm going to be making a nice beef and Guinness stew featuring Positive Mike's. The fuck's this called? For Crying Stout Loud. Get it? For Crying Stout Loud. Mike likes to use dad jokes when he labels his beer. Also sponsored by Mr. Hooper Inc. That's Bryce's outfit. If you're interested in cannabis culture, cannabis is a medical solution to things, or alternative medical solutions. Geez, I'm gapping already. It's a bit early for that, isn't it? Check out Mr. Hooper Inc. And you can get Bryce on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and all your other social media platforms. Or you can ask him questions here. And last but not least, my good friends at Lakeside Farmstead, locally owned and operated by Jeff None and his family. They produce Wagyu beef and a bunch of dairy products in and around the Edmonton area. Check them out on Facebook and Instagram. Lakeside Farmstead, also on the interweb. So without further ado, that's enough of that shit. How's everybody doing tonight? Let's bring in the crew. Joining me tonight, my main man, Mr. Morgan Warren. Also with me tonight, Mr. Bryce Hooper and Mr. Brock Blaszczyk.
Hey.
And they're sitting in what looks like grandma's basement.
Pretty much.
What do you
expect when you get out, man?
Jen's trying to tell me where my fucking needle book is. I don't know. It's somewhere. Morgan's still fucking with his kit.
No, not.
There we go. We got him in. All right.
Yeah.
What's going on, boys? I got a lot of shit going on. I just spent $1,000 on new camera gear this week.
Oh, wow. Nice.
Amazon's going to be doing DPs on my doorstep for the next fucking 5 days. And I'm going back to work at the end of the month. 6 months is up. It's time to get back into the fight. Oh, there's Mike right there. Mike, you missed your plug. Yeah, back to work. New camera gear coming. Fuck, what else? Me and Brock are going to roll a full episode 4 finally next week. That's the plan.
Yeah. Good. All the swag is in.
All the swag's in. Bryce, you got to come by and get your fucking swag if you can write down your timings and shit.
Yeah, I totally blew my timings this week, man.
Everybody's repping tonight. All right, we got a pretty loaded show, like I told everybody earlier, and we dropped a couple teaser trailers. I like doing micro content. It gives everybody a heads up, kind of what we're doing during the week. Those do take a bit of time to make, and I hope you got a kick out of them. Yeah, they take time to make, and it's all dependent on everybody's availability. But we're going to continue to try to roll micro content to keep the audience engaged. So let's fucking get into this. We told everybody we're going to go point blank tonight. There's a few issues. We only have an hour, maybe 2. We're going to get into overtime tonight, I think, with what we're going to talk about. And We're going to get after the white elephant in the room right away. Thanks for everybody who's joined in so far. And we're gonna beat up Morgan. Morgan's gonna speak to some of this as we go here.
Oh, right
do you want to give him? Do you want to give him give everybody a brief on your current situation in life as to what's going on, so we can kind of like attack the white elephant in the room, if you will.
Oh, okay, right on. So like my current situation, I'll give you, like I said, I'll tell you about my current situation, and then for those that don't know me, you know, before you label me as like some fucking left-leaning hippie or something like that, I'll tell you about myself. But anyway, long story short, my situation is that if you haven't seen it in the news, the federal government plans on releasing up to possibly more, possibly less, 1,000 soldiers, right there, 1,000 soldiers from the Canadian Armed Forces due to the fact that they have not taken the COVID-19 vaccine. So, okay, great. So people are like, yeah, well, what about me?
So you're one of those guys.
I am, like, and this is me. Like, think about it. 22 years in the Army, joined the reserves in 1999 in Newfoundland, became a Patricia in 2001. I was in the 1st Battalion, 3rd Battalion, infantry school, back to the 1st Battalion. My entire career has been in the infantry. Pretty much I'm a qualified sniper in 2007, went on to be a sniper detachment commander, qualified master sniper. I was the unit and brigade master sniper for 3 PPCLI in the 1st Brigade from 2013 to 2017. And then from there, I got posted to Gagetown. Normally, you get sent in to do a regular role. I was a junior guy in the office, got thrown in the office to be the officer in charge of snipers, the Canadian Army master sniper. So here I am advising the corps, the infantry corps commander, as well as everything to do with the basic sniper, the intermediate and advanced sniper courses. I dealt with all that. I've run international sniper competitions. I've done it all. Like, I eat, sleep, and breathe the military. 3 tours in Afghanistan. If the Army was a religion, you are looking at the fucking true believer.
And before let me set a couple caveats because
I love the Army. I love the Army.
Get into this. So first of all, I'm not going to use the word anti-vaxxer in any context. That is a term. Just hear me out.
All I can see is a picture of my shitter. The picture of my shitter is up. I can't see your face.
Okay, outside of the picture, your shitter. Okay, that stupid fucking asshole's out snow blowing his yard right now, so that might pick up on the thing. The thing is this. That's a term that the media uses, or the Prime Minister, to describe misogynistic rapists. Hey, do you want me to mute you guys, or can you do it? Shut the fuck up. I lost my train of thought. Misogynistics, rapists. The media describes it as backwoods fucking hillbillies, blah, blah, blah. We're not saying that. Morgan is one of those guys. He's just described his resume to you that has been there, done that, sleeps, breathes, and shits infantry. I also have friends to take it outside of this. Another good friend of mine, an ex-military guy who joined the RCMP. He's a 27-year member of the RCMP. I'm not dropping names. Superintendent also opted out of the vaccine, personal decision. And he's being kicked out of the RCMP after 27 years. So now that we got the preamble out of the way and we've established the fact that you're mature grown men, let's look at what's going on in the news these days. So here's it's kind of last week's headline, right? Like, we do this once a week, so I kind of surf through military news. I'm not a big news guy. Most of it's fucking negative, so I don't read it anyway. I got 2 news sources. One is 95.7 Cruise FM, the locker room in the morning, and the Dean Blundell show. That's about where I get my news from, because it's actually unbiased. So here's the latest. I'm going to read this out for our listeners that are hearing this later on Spotify or iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. And this is from the Canadian Press. It's basically regurgitated shit from across multiple news media platforms. Military launches formal proceedings, whatever the fuck that means. We'll come into that later. Morgan can speak to it because he's living it. Against more than 900 unvaccinated troops. So, Morgan, I'll read this out and then let you comment on it as a guy going through it. So, the Department of National Defense says proceedings have been launched against more than 900 Canadian Armed Forces members for refusing to get vaccinated, though none have yet been forced to hang up their uniforms. Chief of Defense Staff General Wayne Iyer ordered all military personnel be fully vaccinated by mid-October, saying the measure was intended to protect the military during the pandemic. Deadline was later extended to mid-December. While most armed forces members complied with the order, the Defense Department reporting a 98.3% vaccination rate across Canadian troops. Hundreds of others did not. Those soldiers are now facing the possibility of release from the military. According to the Defense Department's latest statistics, by the end of December, more than 830 armed forces members had received formal warnings. And Morgan's going to explain the Canadian Armed Forces disciplinary process, the warning process. I'm not going to do it. Let Morgan speak to it because he's going through it. To attend council and then CMP, and then we'll see how that goes from there. So give us your breakdown of where you are right now with this shit.
Okay, so I'm going to start from the beginning. So the Chief of Defense Staff actually released two, they weren't orders, they were directives. And these things, you can look them up on the Government of Canada website. I think one was released on the 15th of October, give or take a couple days. The other one was released, I think, on the 5th of November, stating, like, this is the way forward. During October, I was in Wainwright on exercise. I'm company quartermaster, senior warrant officer in the battalion, merited 8th in the regiment, ready to get promoted to master warrant officer in July. So we get there, and of course, this is on my mind prior to this because, this has been ongoing now, since the beginning of 2020. So I see the first directive come out on the 15th of October. I bring it up to my chain of command. I'm saying, hey, what's going on? What's the way forward here? For 7 days, they're like, we don't know. So I kind of go into the headquarters. I corner my RSM, and I'm polite and I'm professional. I'm like, hey, RSM, what's going on? He's like, I don't know. I'm like, well, sir, I said, with all due respect, I was like, the directive has been on the Government of Canada website. I was like, it's about 40 pages long, and I've read it thoroughly about 5 times. And you're telling me that nobody knows. I was like, this is not a good enough answer. Someone's got to, because this affects, like, not just me, but, my family and other members. We need to figure this shit out, like most Ricky Tick.
How does the fucking RSM not know?
How does, but I also, before I just walk into the CP, and I mean, I'm a pretty aggressive guy. I don't really give a shit about getting in trouble. Like, I consulted my sergeant major. I consulted my company 2IC. I consulted my company commander, all these things. Till finally I kind of, okay, enough's enough. Like, this is bullshit. And I went to the RSM and nothing. And then still nothing. We do our, the exercise continues. Then we come back and we had to fill out an attestation online saying you're vaccinated, you're not vaccinated, you are going to
Mike's not wrong.
Probably, look, hang on, I just lost my train of thought. So you have to sign this attestation, right? And I'm like, so I got questions right away. I'm like, what is this about? I was like, and why would I be putting my personal medical information, I was like, on like Monitor Mass, which is like an open source thing that anybody can check out. And they're like, well, you have to do it. This is an order. I'm like, okay, fine. So we get back on like the 25th, 26th of October, and they're like, no one's going home until you do this. And I'm thinking, oh, I got no problem doing it. I was like, but there seems to be a lot of missing information. I don't understand. I need answers. And, anybody that's been in the military for the last like 5 years, they keep telling us, senior NCOs and officers, so like, listen, you can't just tell guys that this is the way it is because this is the Y generation. You need to explain the why of things. So I'm like, okay, fair enough. We're the Y generation. Why? Like, what's going on here? I need further explanation. They're like, no, if you don't sign it, your 2 days of short leave for this 4-day long weekend will be revoked. I'm like, all right, whatever. So I signed this thing and I send it in. Fair enough. Then my sergeant major he had to go for shoulder surgery. I was acting sergeant major for 2 weeks, and one of those days was November 11th. The 1st Battalion, we paraded in front of our building, in front of the Hamilton Galt Memorial. I'm the acting sergeant major in my dress uniform, pay stick in hand, in front of the whole company, good to go on Thursday, 11 November, and we had Friday off. Friday after supper, I get a call from my sergeant major, and he's like, "Hey man," he's like, and my sergeant major is an awesome guy, very genuine man. he's like, "Are you going to get vaccinated?" And I'm like, "Well, I already filled out the attestation." I was like, "You know where I stand." And he goes, "Okay." He goes, "Well, he goes, you're probably going to lose your company quartermaster position." I'm like, "Oh, okay." Like, that doesn't fall in line with the directive. I said I should be sent home or I should do rapid tests or whatever. But I said I shouldn't be fired from my merited position. And they're like, "Okay, so you're not to come to work on Monday." I'm like, "Well, I need to come to work on Monday because I need to submit a religious exemption and a human rights exemption memo, so I can get exempt from this so I can continue to do my job."
Human rights exemption.
Yeah, under the
let's just pause. Hold. Yeah, fuck. Right on. Hold your train of thought.
Yeah.
Back in. There's two things that are pissing. Fuck. Here I go.
Hmm.
And park that. We will come back to that, but I need to interject here.
Okay.
One, the fact that you're holding that up is respectable. Two, I'm putting on the old guy hat. Back in the fucking day, troops didn't even know what that meant.
Yeah.
Back in the day, if I wheeled you in the late 80s, early 90s, and said, "Go get fucking vaccinated, we're going to war," you wouldn't even have blinked. You would have did it.
Yeah.
Now, soldiers have far too much independent fucking thought, which is good and bad, but that's another conversation.
I agree with you 100%.
Right?
Chris.
Too much independent fucking thought. And two, I'm not comfortable with the level of government meddling in how the Canadian Armed Forces executes its responsibilities. So what I'm used to is being given orders, make this happen. And as a senior NCO, the how I do it is left to my device.
Yeah.
So if the federal government says, ensure that the Canadian Armed Forces is fit to complete its tasks, whether you're in a pandemic or not, coming out with "thou shalt do this" with this ever-moving fucking target and inability to provide anything tangible other than 1 week you're on a fucking written warning, next week recorded warning, third week CMP, and then we'll come into a 5F release. I'm going to let you jump in, but those are the two things that piss me off. Is you've changed, because back in the day, if I said fucking Private Warren, get it fucking done, we're going out the door tomorrow. That's why I was looking for my needle book, because you could show. I was going to show two things stapled together, and you have the same fucking thing.
Exact same thing.
This is a different case, so that's my opinion. The fucking government sticks its dick into the how, not so much as to the what they expect, and the subservient political aspiring leadership succumbs to that pressure, which is that's not fucking new at all. But it's amplified now in this situation. And two, there's just way too much fucking independent thought, and which has been perpetuated by the military, caring poor a little bit more little fucking Private Johnny's fucking feelings than his ability to fucking close with and destroy the enemy. Oh, by the way, which on the CF recruiting webpage is now close with and engage the enemy.
Yeah. It's kind of funny. Like, I think I sent you an article earlier about the shit state of the army, and there's a quote in there from, and I guarantee this guy is a senior NCO or he's like some hard charging officer, and says like over the last decade, since we stopped fighting a war, our army's kind of falling apart, and we give a shit more about what the fuck's between your legs than winning fucking wars, which is all I've ever concerned myself with. And what have the Russians done over the last year? The Russians, they've invested money, infrastructure into their military, and the only thing they give a shit about is winning a fucking war. They don't give a shit about equality, inclusivity, nothing, because it doesn't fucking matter.
Exactly.
This is
different. This is you're merging two things though right now, Morgan.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, I get it. I'm just saying.
So for you guys who didn't survive the decade of fucking darkness like I did, which was called the 90s, We didn't have we actually had a lot going on. We had actually two operations in the former Yugoslavia, Combat 1 and 2, on the same fucking time. So it was actually relatively high op tempo under a UN flag prior to I4S4. That being said, we had this thing called Sharp, and this is just Sharp 2.0 modernized. And yeah, it's because there's no op tempo. Fucking the troops are bored. You got this bullshit fucking which I effectively call a NATO exercise in Latvia and the Ukraine with some training on the side, but it's not war fighting. Between 2001 and 2014, we were focused on war fighting, and that was it. So there was no time for all this shit. And obviously that's an opinion, and some fucking misunderstood genius who at the staff officer level and higher will argue that point. But from the fucking ground level, and I know I've been out of the game a while, but I talking to the troops, that's what's going on. So anyways, you and some guys have been trying to fight this, right?
Yeah, essentially, coast to coast, you're looking at better part of, I should say, involved in my class action lawsuit, there's approximately 300, give or take. It's been increasing, weekly.
Let's have a look at that. So let me read this out and you can speak to it again.
Yeah.
This is from CBC News. This is one of the ones you sent me today.
Yeah.
Soldiers fighting militaries, vaccine, and I highlighted some shit here. Mandate bring challenge to federal court. The federal court heard arguments Wednesday from 4 Canadian Armed Forces members facing disciplinary action, which is bullshit. It's actually administrative action, the way they're handling it. We'll get to that. Yeah. For refusing to get vaccinated against COVID-19. In sworn affidavits, the 4 service members challenging the order say they are opposed to getting the vaccine for different reasons, including concerns about its long-term safety and religious grounds. Fuck off. But anyway, I do not have so you have to explain to me who this fucking guy is. I do not have the confidence in the government's decision that they are safe and effective. Lieutenant Colonel Elio Antonio Neri. Just before I read it, who is this guy?
I've actually never met the man, but I believe he's a pilot in the Air Force. And
okay,
very well, and on top of that, very well-to-do pilot. How I say, I'm at the top of my game as a master sniper. Well, this guy's kind of at the top of his game. He's like the Air Force officer equivalent to me.
Okay. So he's clearly one of the 4 guys.
Yes, he is.
All right. So, and more specifically, I do not believe the trials have accurately discovered and assessed all potential long-term effects of the vaccine.
Yes.
So whether he's right or wrong is not the discussion. It's his right to say no.
Yes.
And we'll cover the CF's rights in a bit here.
Yeah.
And while IR's order allows for the exemptions on medical, religious, and human rights grounds, well, what the fuck does human rights grounds means? I'll ask you that in a second. Edmonton lawyer Catherine Christensen, who represented the 4 military members in court on Wednesday, Bryce is laughing, told the Canadian press the requests were all rejected. Oh, that's convenient. The 4 service members argue that their constitutional rights are being violated, and the threat of dismissal is extreme. And this is this quote's from Morgan for those of you listening. During my time in the Canadian Armed Forces, I have seen members convicted of serious offenses and not removed from service. Yeah, that's a bit vague, but I'm sure you went on, but they take bits and pieces of it.
They take bits and pieces.
Warrant Officer Morgan Christopher Warren. I didn't know that was your middle name.
Yeah.
So there you fucking have what's going on the legal battle. Basically, you've been told to fuck off.
Yep. Essentially, yeah. So I'm going to get back to we kind of went off track a little bit there.
Yeah.
So
I said, that's fine. I'm infamous for that.
Yeah, we are. So like I said, November 11th, Sergeant Major on parade, acting Sergeant Major on parade. On my day off, I get a call, and they're essentially like, "Don't come to work next week." I'm like, "Okay." I was like, "Well, I need to come to work on Monday the 15th." I was like, "I need to submit some memos, blah blah blah." I come in, I found out that, unbeknownst to me, I've already been replaced. For any infantrymen out there, any guys, I was the company quartermaster, squadron quartermaster, whatever you fuck want to call it. I'm in a merited position. I merited 8th in the regiment out of the 50 top warrant officers. I was number 8.
Okay, big fucking deal. I would have replaced you too.
Yeah, fair enough. That's cool.
Right? We talked about that. We talked
Fi-
about that, man.
We
Like,
did.
You
However,
made your decision. This is the direction I've been given. If I'm the fucking RSM,
yeah.
whether it's right or wrong, fucking, you're done. You're replaced. Anyway, I
Okay,
didn't mean
well,
to fuck with you on
however,
that. I'm
but
just
there's
telling you.
also I'll look up. I'm just going to look something up. Pardon me, one of my QRNOs right here, right now, is under. I'll find a QRNO right now. QRNO 101.09, relief from performance of military duty pre and post trial. So there's a QRNO for this. So
Okay.
once again, for now dealing with my lawyer, and she's dealing with people from St. John's, Newfoundland to Victoria, BC, up to Yellowknife and everywhere in between. And if you read the 40 pages, the 2 times 40 pages directives from the Chief of Defense Staff, I should not have been removed from that position. Essentially, I haven't been charged with anything. I haven't done anything wrong. Nothing. Like, I haven't so much as, for all you Army people out there, so much has been given a 5 Bravo, which is like, if you're shitty, they make you sign a piece of paper stating you did this, the following thing shitty. Sign here, so that way later on your annual performance report they can justify it. And as senior NCOs, you could write a guy up as a rock star and say this guy's awesome. You need no justification. But if you got Private Dingleberry who's awful, and you say this guy was awful, your chain of command is going to be like, well, where were the 5 Bravos? Where were the verbal warnings? Where was all this stuff? You need to justify why somebody is shitty.
So let me ask you this: Are you officially replaced as CQ?
I was officially now the directive.
Or hang on, is the guy the acting company quartermaster?
No, I was replaced. So much so that they actually reorged the whole fucking battalion. So they took the quartermaster from Bravo Company and they moved him to Charlie Company, and they moved a 1 platoon warrant from A Company and they moved him into B Company. So now this is a big giant pain in the ass because you're handing over DAs and equipment and serialized equipment. You know what I mean? Like it's a big pain in the ass.
Sean would have gave you a red chit.
Yeah, exactly. Fair enough. Fair enough. I'm not I get it. Like I'm not against.
No, but I mean that's
like
redressable. That's 100% redressable based on that.
It is redressable.
But
one thing I have learned is that from unit to unit, from base to base, nobody is doing anything the same. So
because
the first like the 3rd battalion, like the 3rd battalion, my battalion where my heart is, those guys, the commanding officer spoke to him, said, listen guys, you're part of the team. We want you here. We understand that this is a directive. We're going to give you rapid tests. We want you guys to come in. We're going to follow orders, blah, blah, but you're a part of the team. You are important to us. So much so that those guys, they were allowed to come to the men's Christmas dinner. I wasn't allowed to even go to my unit's men's Christmas dinner.
Wow.
I'm
not privy to the 242-page document that the CDS issued, but here's what I do know: if anything is 242 pages and doesn't come out as a Can 4 Gen, or whatever the fucking equivalent is today, it's not direction. So if it's direction, all units, regardless of component, of element, regiment, battalion, division, whatever, brigade, follow it. It's direction.
Yeah, absolutely. I was speaking with somebody last night from Coal Lake who's going through the same thing as you right now, Morgan. And it's the same kind of paperwork. It's 1 week, it's one thing. The next week, it's moved on, and they've been advised already that they'll be moving to a 5F as well.
Yeah.
And I'm mind blown because they're like you at the top of their game where they've been excelling at certain things for quite a while for them to just be shunned out and over a health choice.
Yeah. And right now, like I'll continue on, but I challenge anybody who's watching this, anybody that knows me. You talk to anybody that I have worked for or anybody that has worked with me, and see what they think about me. Find out what their opinion about me is.
I'll fucking tell you what I think.
Yeah.
Yeah,
dude. Here's the thing, bro.
Okay.
Like,
go ahead, Brock.
I understand choice and everything like that, but here's the other side of that sword too. And honestly, Well, I'll go into really what I'm thinking. The Army's just kind of in a state of, good leadership getting tired and retiring and getting out and stuff like that. Who's really left, right?
Yeah.
So you don't really got the best cookies in the jar.
Yeah.
And then on another part of it, on the other side of the sword too, you got to be ready to deploy it at all times too, Morgan.
Absolutely.
And because we're Canada and we like to follow the laws of other countries, then, countries that demand COVID-19, you need to be prepared for that, and it's the shitty part,
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. I was like, but so if you're, let's just, we'll hit a few wave tops here. If you're vaccinated, correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm not a fucking doctor.
Yeah.
Can you still contract COVID-19 if you're vaccinated?
Yeah, I just had it.
Yeah,
okay.
of course.
Yeah. No. Two. Can you still, if you're vaccinated, can you still transmit COVID-19 to other people?
No. I don't disagree with how they're fucking doing it. They should be doing following how the procedure goes. They're not doing that.
I don't want to turn this into
hang on.
Time out. I don't want to turn this into a fucking Joe Rogan podcast because nobody on here is a doctor.
Okay, fair enough. But anyway, you see where I'm going with this, right?
Yeah.
No, and I don't disagree with you, but I I believe people should have choice too. Yeah. I think this whole thing has been a kabobble from the begin with not educating people properly. And now the government's all pissed off and taking the easy route out.
Yeah. Well, the problem is they're wishy-washy. I'm gonna bring something up here.
Yeah.
To Morgan's point.
Can I say something first?
Just give me 2 seconds and you can say as much as you want.
All right.
Morgan just left off that not one unit, element, base, fucking is treating it the same way. But yet no disciplinary action's been taken. Now let me show everybody something. Again, did I bring this up already? Feels like I fucking did.
It depends what your definition of disciplinary action is. No. I lost a merited position.
Right.
Yeah.
Again, Section 126 to the National Defense Act. I'm going to read this out for people listening. This is out of Queen's Regulation and Orders again. Every person who, on receiving an order to submit to inoculation, re-inoculation, vaccination, revaccination, other immunization procedures, immunity tests, blood examination, fuck is a long list, or treatment against any infectious disease, willfully and without reasonable excuse disobeys that order, is guilty of an offense, and on conviction is liable to imprisonment for less than 2 years, 2 years less a day is a common army term, or less punishment. It's always less punishment. Nobody goes to fucking DB for this shit. My point is this. No order has been given. And you correct me if I'm wrong. Has an order been given?
No. As a matter of fact, it's funny that you bring up Section 126 of the NDA. So my lawyer, she actually went before the justice against the CAF to try to file she filed for an injunction, and she actually looked at the justice and said, well, okay, you're trying to kick these guys out of the Army. Check, got it. But under the NDA Section 126, refusal of immunization, these guys can be charged. How come they haven't been charged?
Right? Well, I don't fucking know. I mean, I know
if I was following procedure because
they don't know.
If I was the
leadership
CDS,
is gone, man.
Nobody knows.
So the good leadership is gone.
Yeah.
So if I was the CDS, here's what I do. I'd go one of two ways, and I'm not saying which way I'd go because it's irrelevant. Yeah. I'd either go tell the fucking Minister of Defense, what's his name, the architect of Medusa there.
No, it's actually Mrs. Anand now. It's not the sage.
Okay. But he's fucking downrange. I would say no, we're not doing that. Or on the flip side, I would say, yeah, roger that. And I'd say, this is an order, follow it. Anybody who doesn't follow it is subject to fucking 126 and we'll handle it. They didn't do it that way. No. What they did is fucked it all up. And again, not to beat this fucking thing to death home, right? You made a decision. You've made a decision. I respect your decision. I don't agree with it at all, but that's irrelevant. It's your personal decision to make. It's also the CF, even though they fucked it up, their decision to say you're so for everybody listening or watching, the release article, which eventually Morgan will be released under, and the other 899 guys that don't want to play ball, it looks like a 5F release. And what that release article basically says in a nutshell is you are no longer advantageously employable.
Yeah.
It's a fucking catch-all to go away. Thank you. You're not dishonorably discharged. It will not impact Morgan's benefits and all that shit. The Liberal government will just lie to him and take those away. But we'll come to that later.
Exactly. Because a 5F, your benefits can be taken away. Exactly.
They'll just tell him to get his benefits, you have to get vaccinated.
They're just going to basically release these guys under the vanilla fucking release article, and they'll be gone. And that's what's likely to happen because they lack the fortitude to either defend the decisions that these individuals are making or enforce hard style like the Army used to do.
Yep.
To say get vaccinated and fucking get on with it or fuck off, you're gone. That's exactly that's what's happening. Black and white, and Morgan, you get the last words on this, dude, because you're the guy fucking living it. So
Well, there's also another. Sorry, just let me bump in for a second. If that's
no problem.
There's another side of this too. Like, the government did pass like a fucking speedy bill to make all federal employees like have to be vaccinated. They did do that.
However,
and everything.
However, provincially and federally, they've been slowly kind of backpedaling on a lot of this shit too. FYI.
All right.
Really?
All right.
Yeah.
You're probably more up to date than I am.
Believe me, I am.
I'm sure you are. Your careers, you're passionate about your career, man. I get it, man.
Yeah.
I get it when I get being told that you can't go back to work anymore, man. It sucks.
Absolutely does. And I'll say a few things here. So, like I said, on the 15th of November, I went to work, submitted my memos, and essentially I cleared out my locker and left work like I was, like fired off of a fucking job site. Like, I had young soldiers coming up to me and they're like, "Holy shit, CQ, like, what the fuck's going on?" And I'm like, I don't really know, boys. Like, I've been fired. Like, it was a shock to me. And then, so, and Brock, this is I'm going to tell my story, but I'm going to ask you a question, but let me finish my story. Because obviously we'll get into your story later on. Yeah. But like I said, there was times, so, you were not at work, you were fucking down and out, you were at home, at the hospital, wherever. Yeah. So on the 15th of November, I went home. And 2021, 2020, 2021, 2022, we always talk about inclusivity, mental health, all of these things. I went home on the 15th of November, and do you know, I'm a senior warrant officer. Not a single person fucking called me to see if I was dead or alive. Until the 10th of December, 2021. Now, the only reason people called is on the night of the 9th. Well, the 9th of November was our company or battalion men's Christmas dinner. That night, senior NCOs and officers went to the the officers' mess for an at-home. Some of my peers, guys who, once again, like yourself, Chris, they don't necessarily agree with my choice, but they respect my decision.
And that's how it should be.
Exactly. These guys, like a good infantryman, got rip-roaring loaded fucking drunk, went into the officers' mess, and they told these motherfuckers what time it was. And they're like, because as senior NCOs, imagine if you had a private or a corporal who was at home. And if you didn't check in on this motherfucker for a month, your sergeant major, your OC would have you be like, "You're a terrible leader." Nah. And that's the way it would be. But the only reason, like I said, I had my peers went in and got rip-roaring loaded drunk, like good warrant officers do, and they told these warrant officers and they told these lieutenant colonels and these RSMs, they're like, "You've left him home with no direction, and you haven't even checked in to see if he is fucking dead or alive." And then the next morning, I get a phone call.
But you know what? I did the same thing when fucking Lee McDonald went to jail. Nobody was taking care of him except fucking us, and I'm not going to talk about who us is.
Yeah.
It's a systemic fucking problem.
So
the military, anyways. Fuck. Sorry.
It is, but when you think about you think about leadership principles and caring about your troops. Because me, like I said, I eat, sleep, live, and like leadership principles. Like for some people, it's a fucking punchline. For me, I believe it down to my fucking, down to every fiber of my soul. So I got guys in the battalion that are in the same boat as I am. I'm probably the most senior guy, but there's privates, corporals, master corporals, guys I don't even fucking know. You know what? I've gone out of my way to track these motherfuckers down, get their phone numbers, so I can call them and I can say, hey man, how's it going? Because in the last 3 months in one PPCLI, we've had, some guys currently serving, some ex-members, just they couldn't handle the fucking pressure. We had a guy whose wife fucking killed herself. We had a guy on Christmas Day put a Glock 19 in his mouth and pull the fucking trigger.
Jesus.
Take a deep breath, buddy.
Right? And they're going to sit around and talk about mental health like they care.
Yeah.
Like I said in some of the sound bites, never once did I think that I was more than a number. Never once did I think that, like I'm super duper important because I'm fucking grand sniper of the universe, the Dalai Lama of sniping, or anything like that. Like I get it. I'm replaceable because that's the way the army is. That's the way the army needs to be.
And I'll meet you in the middle there. Yeah, you're replaceable. I said it in my fucking soundbite.
And
you fall down the battlefield, you're replaceable.
Yeah.
If you leave the day you leave, you're replaceable. However, here's what I didn't fucking say. I didn't say you should be ignored when you're on your ass. I didn't say replaceable doesn't mean you're fucking worthless, and it sure as fuck doesn't mean you're ignored. And that's a problem today. And that's because that's a systemic fucking individuality that I referred to earlier, that everybody's so centric on their own universe. And it started in, I want to say the 90s when CFH, what is it? It's Canadian Forces Housing, CFH. I always
CFH.
Right. We don't want the troops on base anymore. We want them. So when I joined the Army, they didn't want you living on the economy. They wanted you had to live in the shacks for a fucking year and then get permission to move out. Okay. And if you rewind to the 70s and shit, if you wanted to get fucking married, the CO had to give you permission.
Yeah.
When I lived in the shacks in Shiloh, everything was taken care of off my pay. My fucking phone bill. All my shit was off the Canex plan. I'm still probably paying shit off.
Yeah, which is something else.
Fucking, you know what I mean? They wanted you mission focused. They wanted you mission focused to go fight Russians. And then we evolved. And now, and in an effort to save money as we go through the decade of darkness, it's like we'll cut them loose, and then we'll bury it under the disguise of teaching them fiscal responsibility. And there was some pluses to that. Trust me, there was some pluses to that. Is go live on the economy. Look at the messes now. Does anybody go to the fucking mess? No. Why? Because you got to go through 2 sets of cops to get out of there, so you can't have a fucking beer. So nobody, and the messes are dead. They're boring. The only people keeping the messes together is the fucking auxiliary membership. So the cohesion that you grew up with is disintegrated. It was reborn when we went to fucking war.
Yeah.
Where you continuously were in a high readiness cycle, reconstitution and deployment. You were always with your fucking brothers in arms, either getting ready to go to war, you were at war, or you're coming back, getting a bit of a breather, and then you were back in the same high readiness cycle again. And now in this big dog fuck mode where everybody, all these new fuckers or Gen Zs or millennials or whatever the fuck you call them, and they're all about me. They're sitting in the smoke pit vaping, ready to go fucking play some bullshit video game when they get home or whatever. So when I'm getting animated, my mic's bumping around and shit. So when you tell me the shit that happened to you, and the only guys that stood up for you was your peer group, and then just your peer group, and I'm talking about at your level, and at a senior leadership who are so fucking scared of the next hashtag Me Too. This guy touched me in an Arctic tent in the fucking 80s. About losing his fucking career. Yeah, you are basically fucked. That's where it is right now.
Absolutely. And like my sergeant major, like he progressed faster than I did. But we essentially did battle school more or less at the same time. So like our infantry training at the same time back in 2001. He got the battalion 2 months before I did. And this guy is fucking awesome. He's genuine, and I mean I know what it's like. I mean I'm not an MWO, but I mean I see what he goes through, and he says to me, he's like, man, he goes, I don't agree with what's happened to you. He goes, I can't believe it's happening to you. He's like, I can't even fathom. I don't know what to do. He goes, I've said my piece, and they fucked me off. And he's a master warrant officer. And the reason I know he's telling the truth, because a lot of other people that are of higher rank than me have said the exact same thing that my sergeant major has said to me. But when I went back through, like, so I submitted like for human rights and religion, all these things, these exemptions. I was able to, because they have to give it back to me, like a round trip memo. And I actually seen my sergeant major's his minute on there, and he was he's like, this should be pushed higher. I support the member, blah blah blah. And that means a lot to me, because I'm like, he's a genuine guy. Although he knows, he's like, they're not going to listen to me. He still tried, and I appreciate that. But other people,
that shows once again, even though, like, if I was your sergeant major, I would, on the side in the fucking canteen or in the mess, I would have said, "Fuck you, go get your fucking shot and get on with it. We're going to war again." But we're not. But if you put that memo in, I would have minted it, circled it down here, concur, fucking push this forward.
Yeah. And he did, but I had a lot. But I guess my point is that I had some captains and majors that were like, they said the exact same shit that sergeant major said. But when I read back through it, they're like, we do not support blah blah blah. And I was like, you sons of bitches, you two-faced motherfuckers, right? Like, if you're gonna fuck me, at least tell me.
That's because they're fucking self-serving careerists. Most of these guys, there's only I can count on a handful of my fingers of any of those types of people I trust. We can do that all night.
Yeah, but
let's get back to your question to Brock. And once again, the middle of Brock's answer was interrupted by the beginning of my fucking
Right. So I guess my question to you, Brock, is that, like, when you were down and out, did people at least call to see if you were fucking dead or alive?
Only the dudes I really did combat with, to be honest.
Okay, so fair enough. And
that's
so
it.
mine.
That's that's the thing too, though, Morgan. Like, you're great in the army until you're not useful anymore.
Yeah, I agree with you.
And that's how it is, man. If the army cared, they would have told me how VAC worked. If the army cared, they would have gave me proper mental health. So I wouldn't be like,
let me set the stage here. Okay, Brock's answering your question, but some people who don't know Brock, and I fucking do, because we deployed together. I got a couple images, and I apologize to you listening. So, Brock, what year did you join?
I joined in 2007 of November.
So, like, you literally joined the military and went on pre-deployment training.
You joined to go to fucking war.
Yeah,
like fucking literally.
I did.
So,
I joined not to be a bitch anymore.
Right. So
good job, brother.
So Brock was part of Delta Company with Niven and Poff, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Fucking Delta was the shit.
Through hell any day.
They're fucking awesome dudes, and I was gonna work with them. Never had the opportunity. Anyways,
Niven and Poff warriors,
and they were on an op. And I'm paraphrasing, Brock. It's your story, but I just want to set the stage so you can answer the question. Southwest of Kandahar City, where I was operating out of, and
straight out of Nakane, bro.
Straight out of Nakane. I gotta get. Do you have a shirt made? We're gonna make a shirt.
Yeah.
And anyways, Brock unfortunately was fucking attacked by an IED. So when you listen, here's a point. When you hear this shit on the news, well, they struck an IED or hit a roadside bomb. It doesn't work that way. Improvised explosive devices are a mechanism by which the enemy attacks you. So Brock was wounded in action, and the results of that was he lost his lower left leg, and the fucking right one got blown to fucking shit too.
My hand got smashed up too.
And he got all fucked up by this. And there's a whole other story, but we're gonna save that for next week when we go one-on-one. So Brock, I'll let you can kind of now everybody has a bit of background. Keep telling the story, bro.
Yeah.
So yeah, you no one's visiting you. You don't know what
Well,
the fuck
no,
is going on.
it's just like life goes on too, at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And people's priorities change, and if you're not in the face of everybody every day, you're just going to fade out.
Yeah.
So
and that's just a fact of life, it fucking sucks dick, and like everybody says, oh, once a Patricia, always a Patricia. Yeah, to a certain point, but at the end of the day, it's not wartime camaraderie, like wartime brotherhood, man.
Hey, Chris.
So everybody understands. So everybody understands here. Brock died more than once between fucking Afghanistan and Canada.
That's some rock and roll shit, man.
He goes from
there's
he
you and Nikki
gets medevaced by Black Hawk from the incident site to the Roll 3 in CAF, and then you go to Langstuhl, Germany, correct?
CAF stabilized. Then they got me. I went to Bagram for like a day or so.
Oh, you went to Bagram. Okay, wow.
Yeah. And then I went to Landstuhl, and then they flew my parents and my ex-fiance out.
So other than a fucking some pinhead AO, because they would have gave you an AO, right? Assisting officer.
Yeah, I had like two. Yeah, I had two, and they were actually really good.
Right. So at what point? When's the first time you saw a guy from battalion?
Oh, the battalion in wartime, man. They were there for my parents. Like, I got hit on the 3rd, so that would have been like nighttime in Canada.
Here to what? Give everybody listening and watching a daytime group here.
Yeah, so I got hurt on April 3rd, 2010. So that was Easter weekend. They had the acting CO, who was a major at the time, and the Padre at my parents' door by 10 o'clock in the morning on April 3rd, Canadian time.
Okay. So that's pretty good response. But by this time, we're fucking getting good at this.
What's that?
By this time, we're getting good at this. So that's a pretty fast response time.
Yeah. No, for sure. And that like the battalion was pretty much like, and then after that, I think my parents had they were sitting in front of the AO within 48 hours after that.
Wow.
And they pulled him off of Easter leave. And like he was drunk and stuff, and he had to like get his uncle to fly him to the airport and shit like that.
Yeah.
And like had to get somebody like his roommate to meet him with like his uniform and stuff, and he had to get changed at the airport because he was meeting my parents at the airport, and then like he's still like half cut.
Yeah. No, that's fucking infantry style, man. Right?
Fucking awesome, dude. Right? Awesome fucking guy.
Hey, Chris. I think it's about time for the poem. So
yeah, man. So Morgan's got.
I'm going to say this. I'm going to tell you like who wrote the poem, and then when I'm saying this, put that picture of Brock in front of that goddamn fucking grape hut up again for people to see. So this poem was written by Joseph Rudyard Kipling. For anybody that doesn't know who he is, I mean, he was born December 30th, 1865 in Mumbai, India, and he died in 1936 in London in the UK. So he always identified as British. Now, a lot of you people are like, this guy is just some fucking clown. He was a journalist. He was an author. This is the guy that wrote the fucking Jungle Book, for those of you who don't know who he is. So you do know who he is. You just don't know who he is.
You're like the Cliff Clavin of my life, man.
Yeah, I know, right? I love this shit, right? He was, and his remains, right now, he's at Poets' Corner at Westminster Abbey.
That's the liberal arts scholar at heart.
Yeah. I know, liberal arts scholar. Yeah, so this guy is at Poets' Corner, Westminster Abbey. This is where he was buried, in 1936. His son was a lieutenant in the Royal Army during the First World War. He was killed in action in 1915. And Kipling was always very critical of like the British government in general, and how they employed the military and the kind of lessons learned, because he kind of shit all over them during the First World War, because he's like, you guys didn't learn your lessons from the Boer War. Okay? So he wrote a poem in 1890 called Tommy, and it's about Tommy Atkins. So Tommy Atkins, everybody British soldiers are referred to as Tommies, and so Tommy Atkins is kind of like we have Private Bloggins. Well,
Yeah.
Tommy Atkins, in the early 20th century was the British Private Bloggins.
All right, fuck, I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah. So you got Tommy Atkins. So here's the poem from 1890, and I'm looking at my cell phone because I got a letter buck. And Brock, I was actually kind of thinking about you and tonight's podcast. When and everything that you've gone through, when you were at that town hall, when you confronted the prime minister, and all these things. And I was thinking of you. A friend of mine actually sent it to me. So throw up a picture of Brock. I don't want to see my face. Fucking.
But it looks so good.
It does. Now, Brock, put up the badass picture in front of the Grey Putt. Brock also doesn't want to see himself. You got the Grey Putt picture? Come on, I know you got the great. There you go.
I'm too good looking now that I've lost all my weight.
Yeah.
I don't see any fuckers. There you go.
There you go.
Send it.
So it's called Tommy by Rudyard Kipling. It says, I went into a public house to get a pint of beer. The publican, he up and says, we serve no redcoats here. The girls behind the bar, they laughed and giggled fit to die. I outs into the street again, and to myself I says oh Tommy this and Tommy that, oh Tommy go away. But it's thank you, Mr. Atkins, when the band begins to play. The band begins to play, my boys, the band begins to play. Oh, it's thank you, Mr. Atkins, when the band begins to play. I went into the theater as sober as could be. They gave a drunk civilian room, but ain't none for me. They sent me to the gallery or round the music halls, but when it comes to fighting, Lord, they'll shove me in the stalls. For it's Tommy this and Tommy that, wait outside, but it's special train for Atkins when the troopers on the tide. The troop ship's on the tide, my boys, the troop ship's on the tide. Oh, it's special train for Atkins when the troops on the tide. Yes, making Mako uniforms, that guard you when you sleep. It's cheaper them uniforms, and they're starvation cheap. And hustling drunken soldiers when they're going large a bit, it's 5 times better business than pardoning full kit. Then it's Tommy this and Tommy that, Tommy how's your soul, but it's thin red line of arrows when the drum begins to roll. The drum begins to roll, my boys, the drum begins to roll. It's so thin red line of arrows when the drum begins to roll. We are no thin line of arrows, we are no blackguards too, but single men in barracks, most remarkable like you. If it's sometimes our conduct isn't your fancy it paints, why single men in barracks don't grow into plaster saints. While it's Tommy this and Tommy that, Tommy fall behind, but it's please walk in front, sir, when there's trouble in the wind. There's trouble in the wind, my boys, there's trouble in the wind. Oh, it's please walk in front, sir, when it's trouble in the wind. You talk o' better food for us, and schools and fires and all. We'll wait for extra rations if you treat us rational. Don't mess about the cookroom slops to prove it to our face. The widow's uniform is not the soldier man's disgrace. And here's the kicker, boys, the last fucking verse. For it's Tommy this and Tommy that, chuck him out the brute. But it's savior of our country when the guns begin to shoot. And it's Tommy this and Tommy that, and anything you please, and Tommy ain't a bloomin' fool. You bet that Tommy sees.
Fuck, there you go, man.
Right?
That last verse.
Liberal arts degree. There you go.
Yeah.
Get out and become like a liberal arts teacher, bro.
Well, listen, man, he needs it.
Start educating at universities. Come on, Morgan.
Right?
He needs
like I said, that's Rudyard Kipling from 1890. And like I said, his son was a lieutenant in the Royal Army, killed in 1915.
And what's old is always new. What's old is always new.
It is, right?
Sean in the comments actually posted a Kipling Afghanistan poem as well that kind of fits the space as well too. It's one of those where if he's able to quote such things and we're able to repeat ourselves in such dramatic history all the way back.
Sean's got a lot of time on his hands, but that nails it right there. I mean, I'm gonna do a whole thing about Afghanistan. Is not something I want to beat to death.
Yeah.
But eventually, it's one of those things that if you're always walk a fine line between beating something to death and making sure people remember it. And right now, I know, and we're gonna move on with Brock's story and his transition to greatness and shit. But there's a fine line, and people, don't want to hear. I certainly know that the Canadian Armed Forces wants to erase Afghanistan.
Absolutely.
In an effort to promote its junior officers that don't have the experience, with senior NCOs on the parade square with a rack of medals telling them how the fuck it is. They don't want that. So
they just don't want to admit that they're making tactical decisions by playing Risk.
Well, we could. That's a whole other conversation. I'm saying that we don't have enough time in the week to cover the fucking that. And so I get a million things I want to say, and I'm literally biting my pancreas, not fucking talking about it.
Yeah.
But it will come. The conversation will not go away. I don't want to sound like fucking Willem Dafoe and Born on the 4th of July, fucking waving my fist in the air, talking about Afghanistan. But I do think it's important to glean the salient learnings from that conflict and the amount of time we spent there. And then when you look at a guy like Brock, who joins in 07, fuck man, and basically finishes BMQ, goes into DP1, BIQ, whatever the fuck acronym it's called. Basically, I'll put it in civvy terms for those watching. So Brock joins in 2007, goes on basic training. From there, he goes on basic infantry training. Basic training is generic for all trades, no matter what. After that, you're basically going into fucking high readiness training, pre-deployment training.
Yeah, I showed up to battalion that summer. That September, we were going for high readiness.
That's fucking insane, man.
Like, and my hat goes off to guys like Brock, because Chris, like, because guys like you and I joined in 1999. When Bosnia was the big show. You joined, same deal, when Bosnia was the big show.
I joined listen, man. I joined in 1988 when Cyprus was the big deal.
Jesus, I was in kindergarten.
Holy fuck! So,
but anyway,
I went from Cyprus to Bosnia to Afghanistan. I saw the whole fucking curve.
Yeah, but guys like Brock, like we're in the middle, like the beginning of the fucking war. We thought at the time, and a guy like Brock walks into a recruiting center, and he's like, "Not only do I want to join the army, I want to join the fucking infantry." Like,
right?
There's no two ways about like what the fuck was going through Brock's mind. I know exactly what was going through his mind when he walked into that recruiting center. Like when
I
you
thought
went
I
to
was going to die the whole time.
When you went to when you went to Afghanistan,
well, you were close.
You were exactly where you wanted to be.
I was shitting my pants, and I thought I was going to die the whole time.
Oh yeah, buddy. Anybody
who wasn't afraid was either fucking crazy or retarded, man.
100%.
Anyway, fuck. I know that just boggles the mind. So
for Chris, for anybody that wants to like shit on like millennials, and most of them are like are pussy whip losers, but it's the guys like Brock.
But it's not.
No, 1 second. Let me finish. But Brock, because you're not the only one. Because there's lots of other guys like you too. But guys will shit on like the millennials and your generation, because 9 out of 10 of you are pussies. But Brock, there's guys like you that are not, and my hat goes off to you guys.
Yeah, but that's here's the thing, Morgan. Even out of that, what did they say? What 40,000 Canadians went to Afghanistan? When really it's probably lower than that, because somebody was lazy and didn't really account like how many people were on each tour that had multiple tours. But like fuck, whatever, But like it was only 40,000. It's not like it wasn't the waves of like World War I, World War II, Korea,
No.
No, but I think what he's saying, Brock, is what makes you unique in the world of these fucking millennials that are living in a condo downtown Toronto that their dad paid for, sucking on $9 low-fat macchiatos at fucking Starbucks. What separates you from them is 0.25% of the population in any given year represents the entire strength of the Canadian Armed Forces.
Yeah.
So
yeah, exactly.
hang
Like
on, shut the fuck up.
somebody tried
Shut
to
up,
sell.
or I'll put you on mute. 38 million Canadians live in this country. The average strength of the entire Canadian Armed Forces is 80 to 90,000, depends on the year. Either way, it's 0.25%. Of that, less than half of that number is deploys, and less than half of that number actually goes into fucking combat. Okay? So for those of you listening, I'm too fucking
So how do you
stupid to do
expect
that now.
anybody to give a fuck? Really?
Well, we're coming to that, but Morgan had a point before.
That's really what it comes down to, because
Morgan had a point
the only
before I
guys that
shut
give
him
a
down.
fuck were the guys that were there.
Right? Morgan, you were going to say something.
No, like I said, like everybody likes to shit on millennials because it's easy to do. And you guys are a bunch of snowflake losers, blah blah blah. And we've heard it all, right? But think about it, Brock. Like here we are, 2007, and something's like, you know what? I'm gonna join the fucking infantry. Like somebody sold you a shit sandwich, and you're like, and you're like,
oh,
you know
for
what?
sure,
You know,
buddy.
And it cost you a leg and a half.
That's not like
a hand.
It wasn't
Hey,
a
listen,
hero moment either.
the recruiter asked him if he liked camping, and he went, "Fuck yeah."
No. You guys want to know? You guys want to know the truth of what happened? It was like
Absolutely,
right after
man.
I did my aptitude test. My fucking recruiter came in and he's all like, "So it's a good thing we're in the middle of a war, and it's a good thing your first choice was infantry, son. You're in." So
fair enough, Brock. But you were fucking stoked, weren't you?
Yeah, I was.
Fucking
Totally,
right,
man. It was
well,
like
but exactly.
It was my ticket to get out of my hometown and shit, man. I love the military. Don't get me wrong. I love being the fact that I was the only guy in my graduation class that went to Afghanistan.
Yeah,
I guess that's my point. My point is, when you hear that fucking that phrase, that catch-all, it takes a special person to join the military. Fucking rights it does. When 0.25% of the population represents your military, and a quarter of that it goes and deploys.
Yeah,
I mean, fuck, man.
I'd rather be a shoulda guy than a I'd rather be a done it guy than a shoulda coulda woulda guy.
You think about think about, and I want everybody to think about this for a second, because everybody here is deployed. The shit you went through just to deploy, the pre-deployment training, like
way hard.
Guys were fucking losing knees and blowing out. Then they're
physically it was way harder.
Sure, man.
Yeah,
like the shit you went through just to get the privilege to go be scared for your fucking life, which is the facts.
Yeah,
that's the reality.
Deployment was hard mentally, but like training was probably way harder physically.
Absolutely, man. I mean, but we can all agree on one thing. As much as it sucks when you're there, fuck, I'd go back in a minute.
Oh fuck, I would have stayed.
Yeah, hell yeah.
I know you would have. You know what? Right there.
I'll go back right now.
Listen, those are words for people watching or listening to this later. This guy fucking joined like right before to go to war, goes over there, loses his fucking leg, changes his life forever, and says, I would go back there in a fucking minute. Or words to that, like, fuck, man. That is,
it's a calling, though. That's the thing. It's a calling.
That's what you are, fucking truly salt of the earth, man. You really are. Like that.
100%.
You're a fucking warrior, man. That's what's being a warrior about, right?
That is the fucking exactly what a warrior says. There are no finer people, and I've said this before, and I'm stealing it from somebody. I watched a retirement gig when I was at area headquarters for a Patricia Major, and I can't remember his name. Solid fucking dude. But when he left, here's what he said. He goes, the finest people I have ever met in my life are people that wear the uniform. And the shit you just said just reaffirms my personal belief in that. Because fuck, man, most people, I saw infantry sergeant majors drinking in the mess with me back in the day, trying to find a way to not go over there. Fucking cowards. And we had words.
But that's the thing, though.
And
The
then
right
you
people
come out and say you've got your fucking leg blown off and shit. But if that opportunity came up again, you were fit to fucking fight, you would get back in it in a minute. That makes you a fucking special dude, which is gonna springboard me onto our next conversation.
No, though, Chris, but you know yourself, you go for the bros. You know, it doesn't matter who the fuck the enemy is. You know, it doesn't matter what fucking flag they're fucking waving around. At the end of the day, you go with your buddies that like you have spent the last year and a half drinking with every weekend and fucking doing stupid shit with and stuff like that.
Yeah, you're 100% right, Brock. Is the man next to you, and that's all anybody. That's all we care about. Like, think about it. Every one of us know a guy. So we got back from whatever tour in Afghanistan. We get back, and one of our brothers, he's like, you know what? He's like, I've had enough of this. I'm going to release. And then for whatever reason, another tour fucking pops up, and we're all going back. That guy pulls his fucking release.
Oh, I've seen guys get back in. Oh, yeah. I've seen guys, Morgan, you've seen it too, especially in the infantry.
Yeah. I tried it myself.
Right? And get back in the fucking army after they're out because a tour came up.
Yeah.
Right? Bill Turner, whose name's on my arm, Lieutenant Bill Turner was an artilleryman who had released. And as soon as Afghanistan kicked off, I remember him walking into my office wearing CAD pad before I even got it. I went, what in the fuck, man? And he goes, I'm going to Afghanistan. I'm like, you got out. You're boom. That's one guy there's dozens of guys who left the army for whatever reason. And the minute we were going to go down range and get kinetic, fucking re-signed up and they went down range.
Hey, Chris.
I tried doing it when that dude like shot up like Ottawa and Parliament Hill and stuff like that.
What, you were with him?
I wasn't. What? No.
Fucking Brock.
It was like a week before I was getting released, man.
Oh, is that right?
I tried walking in and I'm like, hey, can we like stop my release? Because it sounds like we're going like fuck up ISIS. Yeah. And then like, the sergeant in JPSU at the time kind of leaned over and was like, hey, Brock, I hate to tell you this, but like G.I. Joe doesn't have one leg, bro.
Wow. Hey, man, at least he was point blank.
Yeah.
So, I mean, so let's we could bullshit about this forever, and we will again.
Okay. I got two things I want to say.
Oh, Chris. Fuck! Of course you do. Okay. You get your two fucking things, and we're moving this chains forward, man.
Then we're moving forward.
Okay.
So, number one is the brothers, your peers, always going to look after you, and that's why we see things like back in the 1920s we had the Legion, and then we know our Korea vets, they kind of got left behind. Then, in like 1972, they started the Korean Vets Association. And we see these guys at the Legion, they wear their green blazers, right? Because they're like, no one's going to look after us, so we need to look after ourselves.
You're not wrong.
Right? And it's one of those things, and you see other veterans organizations, which we're not going to get into tonight, but you know what I'm talking about. We look after ourselves. We look after each other because no one's going to look after us. So we're going to do what we've always done. And we're going to look after each other.
Yeah,
and that is what we do.
You know what you're alluding to. You and me are going to do a one-on-one pod about that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Later.
But it's one of those things. Like it's what we do. We look after each other.
And what's two?
I totally lost my train of thought, so we're just going to carry on.
All right. So Brock, you get blown to fucking shit. You get released. And then suddenly, what direction you go in? And I'm gonna lead this. I'm gonna lead into this because suddenly we got a showdown.
Oh,
yeah.
I'll put the caption up later. So walk everybody through. So for those of you who don't know, and this is a bit of a teaser, this is Brock. What year was this? Do you remember?
2016, I think it was.
16? It was a few years ago.
No, it wasn't 2016. 2018. 18. It was 18.
Right when Mr. Trudeau was riding his wave of
everybody
loves me.
We'll get to that. We'll get to that. So 2018, suddenly Brock is at a town hall meeting in Morinville. I'll get to the details in a second because I want to tell me how we got to this. And he's going fucking 1v1 with Prime Minister selfie stick. So tell me what were you doing? I know this has to do with promoting veterans' rights and all that shit. Walk everybody through how you got to that moment.
What, like? Well, I wasn't part of any advocacy group or anything like that.
You just walked in and grabbed the mic? No, come on. There's more to the story.
Well, no, real? Pretty much, man. That's what happened. Man. Like I was at work up north. I was working.
He walked in and said, "I'll go talk to that fucking idiot."
Yeah, man.
No, there's got to be more, man.
Here, I'll tell you. So I'm like scrolling through Facebook at work like the week before, right?
I thought I had this big build up, and you just moved it.
Awesome.
No, security was stupid at the university.
Holy fuck! I thought there was this big, build up to how you got handpicked because all the shit you were doing, blah blah blah. No, fuck it. I just showed up. Give me the mic. I'll talk to this fucking cunt.
Pretty much.
Okay, well, make something up then.
Well, I'll tell you. So, like, I'm like at work, and so I see this thing, like, fucking Aaron Bedard put up on like his fucking page there, and he goes like, "Oh, like Trudeau's going to be at the town hall." So I was like, "Oh, well," at the Grant McKeown in Edmonton. So I'm like, I don't know. I'll think about it. I'll think about going, telling him what's what, and then like,
which you're notorious for telling quite a bit of people.
I guess so.
What? Yeah, everything from the CDS to the Prime Minister.
Oh, fuck
yeah! But listen, man, you had some really good questions and points. So just bullet point because I don't want to steal away from what we're doing.
Yeah. So basically,
what were the highlight points you hammered with?
Yeah. So I was on my days off the week after I was at work. So that was the day of.
Yeah.
That morning, I just kind of rolled into the garage in my wheelchair, and I was like, "Hey, babe, I think I'm going to go meet the Prime Minister today." And then she's just like, "Oh, where?" At Grant Mac University. And she goes like, "Neither of us belong in a university."
Yeah, especially Mac.
Yeah. So you're looking for your...
She just got to call a friend, got off work.
You're trying to find your...
Translated all my shit from like what I wanted to say. I stood in line for like a couple hours and then like got into like the bleacher, and then like some other old veterans were like, they were like a pretty awesome couple.
Yeah.
They were like down on like the bottom down by the main floor there. And they're like, "Come down with us," put us in the little corner spot. And then he just kind of went around. And then luckily, like, because there was already another veteran that asked the question in front of me, because like the guy got to get his demographic in, right? So we already picked a veteran. So there's not a chance he's going to pick another veteran, right? And I'm wearing my fucking medals to point out I'm a fucking veteran, motherfucker, right? So then, luckily, nobody in the little section I was in wanted to ask a question because, like, they're like his little like groupies. Like, there was a lot of university groupies in there. Yeah. I don't know. I don't think they were even planted, man. Honestly, they were like he was just going around like pointing at people and like he was picking by demographic, but he was
you're like fucking luck of the draw.
Yeah, man.
I can't believe
question my section, and then like he like made it over, checked out my wife, and then like Angel.
Of course, he checked out your wife.
He was pointing at me, and then you could even see it if you watch the whole thing. You just go, "Oh," he goes like, "All right, fine, you," right?
Yeah. I can't believe he picked a white guy wearing medals.
So then like I kind of walk over, right, and then like his like RCMP security entourage like huddles around me. There's like 6 suits all around me all of a sudden, and like I have my pants roundhouse kick in the fucking head. Here, man, this is the consequences of what you sent me to.
Well, you had some good points. I mean,
You had some excellent points. It was one of those things like it's a point of reference for every veteran ever. Like I said, like Brock, you're just like me. Like neither one of us we're not that fucking smart. But man, you were
I like the
on
purple
fucking
crayon.
point. Yeah, exactly. Like I also like the taste of crayons. And
It tastes purple.
it tastes great. I love the taste of purple. Is my favorite too.
Orange
But man,
tastes like creamsicle.
yeah, you like during that like you nailed it. It was amazing.
So for those of you watching or listening that didn't see it, Brock very eloquently stood up, challenged the fucking snowboard instructor and surfer.
I don't think we say he challenged. I'd like to say he outsmarted. But carry on.
Well, we'll get to that. And basically address the fact that the liberal government at the time, I'm not going to beat this to death. Everybody knows about this. And if you don't, maybe we will beat it to death, but not tonight. Liberal government made a whole bunch of fucking promises for veteran advocacy and veterans' rights and had to do with Veterans Affairs Canada and benefits and all this bullshit that was going on. It's still going on to this day. And Brock called him out. And I'm going to bring up the picture and the caption. And it's a famous caption, unless you've been living in a fucking cave for the last 28 fucking years. You've seen this before. But Brock had asked him some direct questions. And this is a snippet. So again, we all attack this point. There is broader band to what he said. So I suggest you watch it, formulate your own opinion. I'm not here to interject into what the Prime Minister said. I'm telling you, this was a snippet of the total thing of what he said. Okay. But this is centric to the conversation. It is centric to the problem. They are asking for more than we are able to give right now. Now, people have fucking ran with this since it was said. And I'm not fucking defending this fucking shit pump, because he alluded to certain veteran groups, but he didn't identify them. He danced around the issue, but he did. At the end of the day, that's what he fucking said. Basically, he said, we're asking for more than they're meaning us, are asking for more than we're able to give right now. And I'm like, fucking hang on a second. Yeah. We are 0.25% of the population. And less than half of that number is only asking for what it's fucking entitled to. And if anybody's jumped through the vac hoops, and I'm going to hand the reins to both Bryce and Brock, who run this better than we do, and most certainly can help fucking both you and me, Morgan.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm dog paddling through this, and I'm a pretty smart guy in my own mind.
I'm retirement, boys. I'm time to check in on the deal, boys.
Hang on. Just let me finish, and I'll hand you the fucking keys. Now I lost you fucking guys. At the end of the day, 0.25% and less than half of that is asking for something they should be easy to get. But once you're in the vac cycle and your brain doesn't work the way it used to, or you're fucking missing, I don't know, a leg, or whatever your problems are, your systemic problems from years of service are, to try to get, and I'm not talking just about monetary compensation, I'm talking about the whole thing, the whole package is a fucking gong show. You need to get an advocate. And what an advocate is, basically a guy who's really fucking good. He's almost like a lawyer at navigating this bullshit. And we all know, these guys know a guy, and I know somebody, and then even then, if you go on the VAC website, it's this monument, and I'm not shitting on the people from Veterans Affairs that work there. It's not their fault. They're part of a system that is designed. They're part of a system designed to the minimize of handing out, handout's a bad word, giving out money, of moving government money from the government coffers into whoever's pocket, unless it looks politically favorable for them. Then they'll do it. But when you're talking about 0.025% or less of the population, well, fuck them. We'd rather keep the money. And these guys have been dealing with that shit every day. So over to you two gentlemen.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's one reason why the Veterans Association Food Bank can be found at veteransassociationfoodbank.ca. There's a location in Calgary and Edmonton for anybody that needs any help. But there's actually a team in Edmonton now, and we don't just have one or two guys. Because there's an infamous man in the Edmonton area that everybody knows his name as soon as you talk about benefits, and that's Jerry Finley at the Poppy Fund. And I can only imagine how overwhelmed he is. He's probably got a team of veterans working around him, but we also have a team of civilians and veteran, both RCMP and military veterans who know the benefits that we're entitled to, and they'll help you not only map it out for you and show you what you're entitled to, but they'll actually sit down, they'll sit at a computer, they'll show you how to log into my VAC account. And I actually found out earlier tonight that you can actually access your Blue Cross account the same way as a my VAC account, and it takes about 30 seconds to access things that we usually have
It's
to
much
fight
easier
for.
to deal with just Blue Cross too.
Yeah. Well, you try and call them and get an exemption letter. It takes weeks to send it out. You can now access it online. You can take it and you can access every exemption letter or medical document that you've had since release, and it's on your Blue Cross account. But nobody's going to tell you.
No, absolutely. And I know, like, Bryce, you're kind of the resident expert on all this stuff, but there's been a lot of organizations over the years that have kind of popped up, when I was in New Brunswick, I met a good man, by the name of Lloyd Farmer, and he started a business by the name of the Veteran Farmer, and his entire lot in life at no cost to veterans is, cannabis, which you're very fucking well sorted out with, and but making sure guys know what the fuck's going on with VAC. I mean, there's other organizations. What else? We've got Canna Connect, and I'm sure you could go on and on and on. Right?
Well, it's the same thing that my Mr. Hooper program does as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's basically showing the troops what they should know as soon as they're released. You should be given, the Veteran Farmer. They're on the south side, and they also do.
Hey, no weed talk. Fuck you. We're not going down the weed road. Shut your fucking shit down.
Time, eh? That was your gun guy.
Listen, I went for a piss while you were talking. I come back and you're talking about fucking weed. Shut the fucking weed
down.
I'm
telling you.
Oh, okay. And now you're not fucking helping me with your weed card, man.
Here's the big thing. We do got a pretty generous practice with Veterans Affairs. The big thing is finding the right language and how to figure out how to cross the red tape.
Yes.
That's the biggest issue we have, and a lot of that is because, the management doesn't hand the workers the tools. The government at times doesn't even hand the management the tools.
Yeah, because they're put in place and they have to figure out the guidelines and how to help the troops themselves. Mm-hmm. And then it's months down the road, and it's actually other veterans that are helping case managers to navigate other veterans. And then all of a sudden you've got a conglomerate of people that are getting together and actually doing things for themselves. It should be something that should have been mapped out 100 years ago, because veterans have been fighting since how long for benefits? Since before the Boer War? And that's 1890s, as we were referencing other poems and such of that time too, right? Like, it's one of those.
Well, a lot of thing too is guys just gotta suck up the pride thing too.
Absolutely.
We are entitled to everything that we are entitled to.
Yes.
Take it.
People have been saying that it's an insurance company.
But you know what?
The mindset was that you're going to manipulate that insurance company.
No, it's a service. It's a service.
Well, you know what? A good friend of mine, Doug, and he said he was going to watch tonight. He commented on my post, and Doug, he was my troop commander in J Battery 3 RCHA in the late 80s, early 90s. And he mentioned that too. And I kind of took offense to what he said, saying, no, man, fucking the government belt feeds billions of dollars for sex changes in Africa.
Yeah.
And does a lot of good social programs. I'm not going to argue with that. But this is shit. Why do you have to fight for for something you should be entitled to.
Yeah.
They sent you there.
Get
And I was going to
turned
save
down
this
by
for the back end. I'm
leaders.
going to cover it now. Let me just say something for a second. Actually, I'll put my ass full screen for a minute. I talked about in my little dramatic fucking teaser about unlimited liability. So if you're fucking around in the background, boys, please go on mute for fuck's sakes. I'm trying to say some shit here. Unlimited liability. If you don't know what that means, there's a word called expendability, which favors well and looks great on TV in Hollywood and and shit like that about, well, you're expendable. Well, that's a negative thing. We're not fucking expendable. And I've never looked at any of my guys as expendable. The amount of money that the government puts into training any individual soldier is a fucking huge amount of money. Hundreds of thousands of dollars go into training a soldier, sailor, or air person, to be able to go effectively do their job, ultimately to deploy and be able to do that job. So
Aviator.
There you go. There's a lot of money that goes into it. No one's expendable. However, unlimited liability means, I'll break it down in layman's terms, and I'll use Afghanistan or any other deployment contextually. It's the only career or job in Canada, specifically within combat arms trades, where it is anticipated and expected that there will be casualties, either in the form of injuries, such as what Brock sustained, or in the cost of human life. It is fucking, and it's planned in. It is planned. We anticipate and expect people to get killed in theaters of war, in these conflicts that we go to. So, and the expectation is when you go over there, when you sign the dotted line, as we say, I don't remember it ever being dotted. It was pretty much solid. Unlimited liability. It means, yeah, fuck, you could die in this job. There's no other job, and I know some first responders might argue with me, and you're fucking wrong. If you're a firefighter or a cop or a paramedic, you are not expected to go in and risk your life and die to complete your mission. You're not. There's mechanisms in place to pull you back and manage that. And if I take flack from that, fuck you, because I've seen cops overseas with me who did great job training and mentoring the Afghan National Police, Kandahar City Police. But as soon as this shit hit the fan, they were pulled out of there. We were not. We stayed in the fight and did what we're paid to go do. So is it too much to ask to be taken care of on the fucking back end when you're fucked up from your brain to your toes? I don't know. I don't think so, especially when we represent half of 0.025% of the population. There, I'm going to jump off my fucking soapbox, bring you guys back in.
Well, war is a young guy's game, man. And that's all there is
Tell
to
me
it.
about it.
And that's the deal. The deal is the government can use and abuse my body as much as it needs to get the mission done, complete the mission. But when the time's over, you got to take care of me and my family. That's the fucking deal.
So
there's
the
that's
magic.
the thing. Each
Brock,
and every single one of us need to cash in on that deal. It's time.
That's the magic question.
That's all there is to it.
Let me ask you this, and this will be our closeout because we're fucking well into OT. Well, close to OT. Do you feel that on your own, okay, the government or the system took care of you, compensated you for what happened to you?
Now that I fought for it,
hang on. I'm talking. We'll get to that. Right out of the gate, you're fucking right out. You're out of the army. You're going through JPSU and all the bullshit, and they hand you a fucking pile of money or whatever they did, and then, like, okay, I'm answering the question for you, I guess.
Yeah.
You probably didn't know until you learned all the shit you have to do.
Buddy, I didn't find out how Veterans Affairs kind of sort of worked, and even now I'm still trying to figure out how it works. It's like 10, 11 years later.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I tried going back to work full time. I started out as a laborer up in the oil sands, man. I was digging trenches and shit. And then, like, they thought it was a bad idea to have the guy with the one leg digging in a hole. So, you know, they made me do safety watch for like months on end. And then, you know, and then I became like a safety guy. And then I was able to walk around from smoke pit to smoke pit. It was a great job.
Yeah, but why were you doing that? Because you had to go earn money.
Well, yeah, because I didn't know that I was entitled to any type of like, you know, some like
now we've
earnings
reached the crux of
compensation or anything
now we've
like
reached
that.
the crux of the conversation. You
Yeah.
did not know. You weren't
No,
aware.
no.
Lack of
And,
education. They
well, and
will
that's what it
not
is. And it
tell
also
you.
breaches the Veteran Charter rights too. You know, the government has totally 100% neglected, especially the Afghan veterans.
Yeah.
You know, out of everything, you know, and a lot of the Bosnian vets as well. You know, I'm not, you know, that let's be honest, that's when the 90s where everything started going to shit. You know.
Oh no, for sure. I mean, I could talk to you about a lot of guys that got fucked up in Bosnia and
Yeah.
Croatia back in the day.
It went to shit. It went to shit long before that. Talk to the boys from Korea.
Well, absolutely. That's the forgotten fucking war, if anything was. And ours is next, but Bosnia was on that list. And like those guys, I know a million guys, and I was in fucking Bosnia. And the amount of guys that got fucked up over there. But the problem was there wasn't embedded media to bring it to light.
No.
And there was far less available than there is now. Now that on that note, you talked about pride. As we shit on the system, there's also another piece to it, and that piece is guys need to fucking have the fortitude and mental will and humility to go seek help because it is there.
Oh yeah.
It's not perfect.
Well,
it's not perfect, but
it's you know, and this comes into the conversation of, oh, I don't want like some therapist who's never been there. Fuck them, they don't get it, you know. But at the end of the day, like just like in like fucking battle school, infantry training, and everything like that, you needed that senior NCO that needed to teach you how to be a fucking whatever trade you decided, you know. So you kind of need a civilian to teach you how to be a civilian again.
Oh man, I read a great article on LinkedIn today about you need a translator. Like you were on tour, but right now civilian life is your next tour. You need a translator to translate all that stuff from what's going on here so that way you can understand it.
actually I've rewrote guys' resumes for them to turn our army lingo into civvy lingo. So if anybody needs that,
buddy,
Did you know
100%.
that you can actually
I should come down to the fucking food bank on one of those career nights or whatever the fuck you guys call them, and talk to guys about how to rewrite their resumes.
Yeah.
We just fucked off on a tangent. Let's get the compass pointed back north. The point is, when you get out, you have no idea. Like you go through JPSU and you go through all that fucking voc rehab shit, but you don't know what's out there until you.
Well, and honestly,
you grind and fight for what should be mapped out for you.
Well, and the problem, you know, starts out even before that too, though.
If you can map out for me, you know, or for an infantryman, how to fucking assault a trench and kill the enemy, sure as fuck you can map out how he can get his entitlements and benefits when he gets out. Like, let's put
it all goes back to the saying. It all goes back to the saying. The Army's great at teaching you how to put the uniform off, but it's garbage on teaching you how to take it. Putting it on. But it's
truer words are never spoken. And Morgan, you better pay attention to this shit because you're about to be going through it.
Oh, what, brother? Fucking, I'm all over it. And like, and I acknowledge everything's Brock saying, and I know for a fact that as much as I know, and everything that Brock is saying is 100% true, it's still gonna fucking hit me like a freight train.
Dude, it's garbage, man. It's your calling. It's your identity. It's your identity at the end of the day. You know, and that's the thing about being a soldier. It's your fucking identity.
I'll tell you what, the hard I've had two really fucking hard days in my life. One was 30 December 2009, and one was sometime in May a year later. A hard fucking day to hang that uniform up and knowing you're never putting it on again.
Yeah.
It's a hard day.
Yeah. Man.
But they do get better. They fucking get better.
Well, what was it? That movie Jarhead, man? Like what's that? What the fucking soldier will always remember a feel of a rifle?
Yeah,
absolutely. Well, yeah. You know, like trust me, I haven't forgot a fucking thing.
Oh yeah.
Anyway,
But
let's wrap-
that's the big thing, and that's where the problem starts before you release. If the Army didn't do this bullshit garbage band-aid of fucking mental health they have right now, and actually worked on guys and actually got guys better and intervened early, we would probably have better leadership. We have leadership that would probably lead with morality because they would understand themselves better. And not only that, probably understand their troops and know, hey, maybe I should ask the right questions here.
Well, let's be honest. The only way you will successfully get what you're entitled to, and the key word is entitled. Fucking entitlement. You are entitled to these benefits, yet they hide them from you. The only way you know is you talk to a buddy who's been through the shit before and had to grind his way through it, or he knew a guy who, like, the only way I knew how to get anything, and I was that guy who was too proud to fucking deal with my shit for 10 years.
They don't even educate the Veterans Affairs employees. My case manager has no fucking clue what I'm entitled to. No clue.
Exactly.
It's just like, well, what do you want? And I'm just like, well, I don't know what I want. I've been told to what I want in my whole fucking life. So tell me what my options are, and I'll fucking pick.
That's my point. Yeah. We have to lean on somebody who served, somebody who wore the uniform, who's been through it, to walk us through it. I'm like, that's a fucking bit of a flawed process.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but then it creates a purpose for guys after the fact.
No, but what it actually in fact does, because everything starts from the get-go, from the day you release. Your fucking release file from the release section in NDHQ gets walked over to the civilian side of NDHQ, drops over to the VA agent, and says, "This guy's covered to you."
Yeah.
They go through your whole file, kind of make an estimate on how much you're going to cost them. And then they're going to pop that into the piggy bank and ask for that for the budget.
That's budget, by the way.
Oh, yeah. So that's the budget they ask for every year. And that just gets added on and added on. And it only goes away when guys start claiming stuff.
Dude, you are a fucking number.
Just wait, I'm not done.
All right.
What happens is, basically anybody that doesn't claim their money, because that money is there for you, it's always budgeted for you every single year, if you don't claim that money, that just gets thrown back into the kitty. And whatever gets thrown back into the kitty, there's interest made off that. And that's what pays out all the managers' bonuses, my friends. So the managers over at Charlottetown are making money off of every time you don't claim your shit.
Start claiming your TAD.
Yeah.
So who's really winning?
That's why you have to fight for your fucking your
that becomes
entitlement.
Your new fire orders right there.
You got to fight
to
for
take care
entitlement.
of yourself. Literally.
Yeah.
If you don't know how to map out your
ask your friends.
Come down to the food bank in Edmonton, the Veterans Association. Yeah. Somebody there will sit down with you. Call them. There's a 1-800 number. Find us on Facebook. Reach out to a guy who's there. Find me on Facebook or Instagram.
Ask the nerds in your platoon, that the guys that always read all the paperwork, every single procedure. Ask those guys.
I guess that's my point. It's talk to guys who have been through it. They'll help you through it. If you know somebody, or you are one of those people that's releasing from the Canadian Armed Forces, and you have legitimate entitlements based on what's happened to you. Not all these fucking assholes that cashed in on the PTSD gravy train and they're out there.
Deal's a deal, bro. Deal's a deal.
It's no different than lower back pain.
Deal's a deal. Everything is. See, the thing is, Chris, you're basing everything off of military mentality. Base it off of civilian mentality. What other people would be okay with signing up, going to a foreign country, being shot at, shooting other people? Like, there's not many people. And at the end of the day, you kind of got some problems to begin with. So
we're of a quarter of
that's just it.
0.25%, man.
That's the deal. That's the deal.
Or less.
Hey, Brock, I'll even kind of like roll it back. Like, who even like signs on a dotted line to go to fucking Wainwright and live like an absolute fucking savage in a fucking trench in a puddle? Like, you know what I mean?
That's just it. I heard they're not even giving instructors there like food allowance or anything.
No,
like,
exactly.
They're
So
making them pay for a mess card and shit.
The way I used to be, like, I said, I'm Mr. Infantry, right? I'm like, if you haven't been to Afghanistan, you haven't been to war, you ain't shit, motherfucker. But I've kind of come around. I'm like, you know what? If you signed on the dotted, or as Chris said, probably solid line, because I don't remember a dotted line, and you know what? And you were in the Army. I don't give a shit if you were the tip of the spear, or if you were like the woggiest of the wog clerk cook motherfucker. At the end of the day, you walked into the recruiting center. I'm going to serve my country. Good. Yeah. And you know what? And if some guy who does 3 years, making eggs over easy, submits a PTSD claim, and he gets 150 grand or whatever he gets, 10 years ago, I was like, fuck that motherfucker. He hasn't done shit.
Yeah, I don't have that story. I walked into the recruiting center and said I needed a summer job that lasted 24 years.
Exactly. But what I guess
just sucked you in. Just sucked you in.
I still need a summer job.
But my point, I guess my point is, I would rather see, 6 figures go to a clerk who signed on a dotted line to serve their country, and really, compared to us as combat vets and A-type personalities that we have deemed have done nothing, I would rather see that individual get 6 figures than see I don't know, Omar Cotter get $10.3 million.
Oh, for fuck's sakes. We're never going to get off this pod now you brought that shit up. Here's the thing.
Just saying.
He won.
Listen to me.
He won, bro.
We're not going there today. There's no way. There's no scenario where we talk about that fucking guy.
Okay.
We'll talk about this. To Morgan's point, I don't care what trade you were. I went through this shit with my own guys coming in from outside the wire back to CAF. I said, don't shit on those people. They're the reason your HLTA's booked. They're the reason you get paid. They're the reason your vehicle operates. They're the reason you get your kit exchanged, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. At the end of the day, anybody, despite your trade, whether you're a fucking cook or a fucking underwater fucking sniper, you represent what 99.075% of the population of Canada were not willing to do. So
100%.
That makes you a better man or woman. And that's it.
That's all there is to it. But that's the thing. That's the brotherhood. And that's why we will always, stick out for one another. Right. If you notice, like, probably if you're like, you've probably seen it yourself, Chris, if you're working up north and wherever like that, the Army guys all of a sudden just start crowding together.
Oh yeah. You could see them. I can smell an Army guy a fucking mile away. Yeah. I can also smell a fucking poser a mile away.
Oh yeah. 100%.
Yeah.
So,
all right. We're going to do this again. I'm going to fucking punch us all out here. We've covered a lot of shit tonight. We got the vent a bit. We're definitely going to do a point blank session again. I guess that's what we're going to call it now. We covered that, Morgan's in the fucking ether due to a lack of direction from the CF. We've covered that VAC needs work and people need to fucking lean on their brothers and sisters when they release from the military. And we've covered that Morgan's wife looks like a clerk.
I meant it as references. She looked like a clerk.
However, like in her defense,
listen,
after for 20 years, she's a good-looking clerk.
Next Wednesday, next Wednesday, I want a picture of your wife because I need to see if she looks like a clerk.
Okay, I will. I agree with Bryce.
All right. I'm going to punch you guys and then close down fucking range control here, okay? But stay on. All right. Big shout out and thank you to my man Morgan Warren, Bryce Hooper, and Mr. Brock Blaszczyk. Myself and Bryce are going to record Fire for Effect episode 4. Next week is the intent, and I will drop it before I fuck off to my new adventure in Kitimat. So, Bryce, Brock, thank you. We'll talk in a bit. Morgan, thank you. We'll talk in a bit. Anybody still hanging on? Thank you very much. I'm just pushing around the buttons here, hoping things will change. There we go. It's a good show. We could have went on all fucking night. We will do this again. Sometimes we like to just go off. I was getting a lot of comments. Well, Chris, you're tackling a lot of social issues, and Bryce really likes to push what he pushes, and I agree with that stuff, and we're going to continue with that. I got Natalie Forcier coming up to talk more about that type of stuff. I've got I hope Homes for Heroes coming up, and my intent is to do a documentary on them when I get my shit together. So there's a lot more of that coming up, but there's also war porn coming up. So I want to thank everybody for hanging out with me tonight. And a big final shout out before we punch out here. Thanks everybody for listening in. Jen, find my needle book for me. Again, Fire for Effect Live, brought to you by DeanBlundell.com. Go to DeanBlundell.com. Check out news, sports. Probably not your best news source, but there's some pretty cool shit on there. You'll find my pod on there, and a bunch of other pods, including the Jedi Jimmy podcast, who I have to produce tomorrow night, in fact. Yeah, Positive Mike's Brewing Company. Again, I'm making a lovely knockoff beef of Guinness stew with Positive Mike's beer tomorrow. It's going to be fucking awesome. Mr. Hooper Inc. If you want to learn more about cannabis culture, cannabis and other hallucinogenics are starting to come up, which is great because I think mushrooms are awesome as an alternative to conventional medicine. Check it out. And if you're into good beef and you're in the Alberta area, or you know me, I'm able to hook you up. Check out Jeff None's family, Lakeside Farmstead. They got legit Wagyu X beef and amazing dairy products. That's all I got. Thanks for hanging out with me tonight. We'll do this again next week.